One single number. 1.45%. That's the portion of Ukrainian territory Russia managed to capture between 2023 and 2025. 2 years of fighting. 2 years of massive strikes. 2 years of constant deployments of soldiers, tanks, and ammunition. And the final result? 1.45% of Ukrainian territory. During that same period, estimates place Russian losses, dead and severely wounded combined, at around 1.2 million men. More than 16,100 armored vehicles destroyed. And Vladimir Putin himself was forced to announce a reduction in Russia's military budget for 2026, the first one in 10 years. In the middle of an armed conflict. Ask yourself for a second, how does a country that allocates 40% of its public spending to the military end up having to cut defense spending during wartime? The answer to that question is exactly what we're going to break down in this video. Because this isn't luck, it isn't coincidence. It's the result of a precise, methodical, and genuinely revolutionary strategy. A strategy that NATO armies themselves are now urgently studying. A strategy with a name, the Large-Scale Destruction Zone, or Kill Zone. In this video, we're going to explain exactly how this strategy works, why it's so effective, and why it's rewriting the rules of modern warfare. Let's begin. Before diving into the strategy itself, we need to understand the scale of Russia's failure. And for that, the numbers are undeniable. In 2023, the Russian army captured 488 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory in an entire year. For scale, that's roughly the size of the island of Malta. In 2024, gains were somewhat larger, around 3,900 square kilometers, but that still represents less than 1% of Ukraine's total territory. And in 2025, Russian advances slowed to become almost symbolic, with daily progress of 45 to 120 meters in key sectors like Kupiansk and Pokrovsk. To put that in perspective, that's slower than the Allied advance during the Battle of the Somme in 1916, World War I, one of the deadliest and most stagnant battles in modern military history. But here's what's truly remarkable. Russia is not running out of soldiers. It is not running out of equipment. It continues mobilizing hundreds of thousands of men. It continues producing shells, armored vehicles, and drones. And yet, it advances at a snail's pace, losing tens of thousands of men every month. Why? Because Ukraine has developed a form of defense that makes every square meter of conquered land prohibitively expensive. Not just expensive in equipment, expensive in human lives, expensive in fuel, expensive in time, expensive in morale. And that defense rests on a concept we're about to detail, the kill zone. But to understand why it's revolutionary, we first need to understand what war looked like before this. Let's take a quick historical detour because it's essential to understand what changed. World War I. Soldiers dig into trenches. Artillery pounds positions for days, sometimes weeks. Then infantry climbs out, crosses no man's land under machine gun fire, hoping enough survive to overwhelm enemy lines. The kill zone in that context? A few hundred meters of open ground. Cross it, you might live. Fail, and you die. World War II. Blitzkrieg changes everything. Tanks, aircraft, mechanized infantry combine to break defensive lines and exploit breaches. The kill zone becomes more dynamic, measured in kilometers instead of meters. Air superiority becomes decisive. But it requires dedicated aircraft, planned missions, months of pilot training. Cold War. NATO and the Warsaw Pact face off in Central Europe. Deep defensive planning, bunkers, anti-tank obstacles, minefields, all arranged to channel enemy armored columns into pre-designated kill zones. Static defensive lines, planned in advance, built in concrete. This is the model both Russia and Ukraine inherited from the Soviet military tradition. Concentrate forces in fortified positions, hold ground at all costs, match mass with mass. That model worked for decades. It didn't work the moment drones entered the battlefield at scale. And that's exactly what happened, starting in 2023.
Think about the economics of air power in the 20th century. During World War II, launching a bombing raid required aircraft costing millions of dollars, crews trained for months, complex coordination involving dozens or hundreds of planes, and acceptance that many wouldn't return. Today, a Ukrainian soldier sitting in a concealed position launches an FPV drone costing $350 to $400. He guides it 20 to 25 kilometers across the battlefield and destroys a Russian T-72 or T-80 tank worth $2 to $3 million. The entire operation takes minutes. One operator, no crew, no heavy logistics, no multi-day mission planning. This is a fundamental shift in the balance between offense and defense. For the first time in a very long time, defense has become economically favorable, and the impact was immediate. Soviet-style concentrated fortifications became death traps. Large trenches, once meant to protect soldiers from artillery, are now perfect targets for FPV drones. A grenade-equipped drone can drop directly into a trench with near-perfect precision. Large defensive positions, once considered nearly impregnable, can now be penetrated by small drones through firing slits or entry points. And the lethal zone has expanded dramatically. What used to be a few hundred meters is now 25 to 40 kilometers deep. Anywhere inside that zone, a Russian soldier, tank, or supply truck can be detected, targeted, and destroyed at any time by an operator dozens of kilometers away. That's the Ukrainian kill zone. Here's how it's structured. Ukraine's new fortification system stretches over 2,000 kilometers across Donetsk, Kharkiv, and Dnipropetrovsk regions. But calling it a line would be misleading. It's a layered network of overlapping lethal zones. Layer 1, passive obstacles. Anti-tank mines, anti-personnel mines, thin wire entanglements designed to slow infantry. Anti-tank ditches lined with barbed wire. Dragon's teeth, concrete tetrahedrons linked by steel cables and surrounded by multiple rows of barbed wire. These obstacles aren't designed to stop Russian forces. They're designed to slow them, channel them, force them into predetermined corridors. And that's where the real work begins. Layer 2, micro-fortifications. Behind the obstacles is a dense network of small, camouflaged positions. Not massive bunkers, small structures, often housing 1 to 3 soldiers, equipped with multiple drone systems capable of striking up to 25 kilometers away. This dispersion is critical. In traditional warfare, destroying a command post could paralyze an entire sector. But when your defense consists of hundreds of small, independent cells, each capable of long-range strikes, there is no single point of failure. Russia can destroy 1 position today, 2 tomorrow, a dozen this week. It doesn't matter. The network adapts. Other cells compensate. The kill zone remains lethal. Layer 3, permanent surveillance. Cheap commercial drones provide constant observation.
Fiber-optic drones can fly extremely low, making detection easier than traditional higher-altitude systems. This enables something 20th-century warfare never allowed at this scale: striking any point along the contact zone within minutes, from any direction, at any time. And then comes the fourth layer, the most innovative of all: mobile robotic warfare. By late 2025, Ukraine is expected to deploy 15,000 unmanned ground vehicles on the battlefield. These are not toys. They can carry 300 kilograms of ammunition or supplies, evacuate wounded soldiers, lay mines, deliver explosives, even mount machine guns for suppressive fire. In December 2024, Ukraine conducted the first fully unmanned assault in modern military history against Russian positions. Only ground robots and FPV drones. No infantry in the direct assault. In July 2025, Ukrainian forces captured Russian soldiers without deploying a single foot soldier, only drones and robotic systems. When Russia destroys a robot, Ukraine loses equipment, not human lives. The attrition equation shifts dramatically. But here's the key: it's not just the technology, it's the speed of innovation. In modern war, technological advantage is measured in weeks. Spring 2024, Russia introduces fiber-optic drones immune to jamming. Global analysts call them a potentially decisive weapon. Ukraine's response? Capture them, disassemble them, analyze weaknesses, build better versions within months. By summer 2024, Ukrainian companies were producing lighter carbon fiber models with improved spool design, reduced drag, optimized weight distribution, and ranges up to 40 kilometers, exactly matching the depth of the kill zone. More than 200 Ukrainian companies now work on drone development. Dozens of models approved. A decentralized, competitive ecosystem. Constant innovation, battlefield feedback loops measured in days. This is a startup model of warfare, and Russia cannot match that speed. Russia tried mass assaults. More soldiers just means more targets. It tried massive artillery, but dispersed, camouflaged micro-positions require enormous shell expenditure to destroy, and Russian artillery is quickly targeted in return. It tried electronic warfare. Fiber-optic drones bypass jamming. It tried striking logistics. Ukraine decentralized logistics with robotic resupply. It tried slow territorial grinding, but the kill zone moves with Ukrainian operators. Result: 150 to 400 meters per day, at devastating human cost. 1.2 million casualties. Russia effectively consumed its pre-war professional army. Defense spending reached 40% of public expenditure. Export capacity collapsed. Rail logistics disrupted by sabotage. Even when equipment reaches the front, it enters the kill zone. The Kremlin pushes for negotiations freezing the conflict, because time is not on Russia's side. NATO openly admits it must learn from Ukraine. Denmark, Poland, the UK, Romania, even the United States reportedly seeks access to Ukrainian battlefield-tested drone tech. Using a $4 million Patriot missile to shoot down a $400 drone is economically unsustainable. China observes. Taiwan studies drone walls. Israel studies robotic urban warfare. Doctrine is shifting globally. Ukraine proved a smaller nation can compete if it innovates faster. From almost no drone industry in 2022 to over 5 million drones produced in 2025. Direct battlefield engineer feedback, rapid iteration. Russian defense industry, centralized, bureaucratic, slow. Ukraine, agile, competitive, adaptive. That velocity creates cumulative advantage. Each month, better drones, more robots, broader partnerships. Russian soldiers know they are entering a lethal surveillance zone. Morale erodes. Sanctions complicate Russian electronics procurement. The innovation gap widens over time. Ukraine still faces manpower strain, production vulnerabilities, Russian countermeasures, diplomatic pressure, but the structural transformation of defense remains undeniable. 3 lessons. Cheap autonomous systems in mass can offset numerical inferiority. Speed of innovation beats static technological superiority. Decentralized defense without a single failure point is extremely hard to defeat. This challenges trillion-dollar defense models. Future wars may look more like this than anything in the 20th century. 1.45%. For that, Russia sacrificed its professional army, spent hundreds of billions of dollars, triggered historic isolation, and cut its military budget during war. Ukraine hasn't won the war, but Russia cannot win militarily either, and that has global implications. Small countries can impose unbearable costs on larger aggressors if they innovate faster. This may be the beginning of a new era in defense, and Ukraine is its most important and most expensive laboratory. That's our full analysis of the Ukrainian kill zone and what it tells us about modern warfare. If this gave you value, clearer understanding, real data instead of emotion, share it. In our next analysis, we'll examine Ukrainian sabotage operations hundreds of kilometers behind the front lines, inside Russian territory itself, how they work, what they target, and why Russia struggles to stop them. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you have questions about specific